Meghan Markle just sat down for what was supposed to be her big comeback interview with Harper's Bazaar, carefully crafted to show the world her authentic new chapter. But here's the thing about carefully crafted narratives. They have a way of falling apart when someone gets a little too comfortable. And comfortable is exactly what Meghan got during this sit-down at the Polo Lounge, one of Hollywood's most exclusive see-and-be-seen restaurants. Between the mimosas and the cappuccino with her own face printed in the foam, yes, that actually happened, Meghan let slip some truly fascinating details that her PR team probably wishes she'd kept to herself. Because when you peel back the polished exterior of this interview, what Meghan accidentally revealed about herself, her motivations, and her carefully constructed image is absolutely wild. From admitting what really drives her need for control, to confessing how she actually makes decisions despite her claims about authenticity, to revealing the real dynamic of her marriage, Meghan said the quiet parts out loud more times than anyone probably realized. So let's break down every single moment where the mask slipped, because trust me, once you see these slip-ups, you can't unsee them. Before we dive into all the moments Meghan accidentally gave away more than she intended, let's talk about what this interview was supposed to be. This was Meghan's big moment to control the narrative after years of what she calls being subsumed by other people's stories. Harper's Bazaar gave her the glossy cover treatment, the carefully styled photo shoot, and thousands of words to tell her side of things. This was meant to be the launch pad for her new lifestyle brand, her Netflix series, and her whole rebrand as an authentic Californian entrepreneur who just wants to have fun and be herself. But here's what's fascinating about this interview. When you actually read through what Meghan said, not just the pretty pictures and the flattering framing, you start to notice something. There are these moments, these little cracks in the performance where Meghan reveals things about herself that completely contradict the image she's trying to sell. And the wildest part is that she doesn't even seem to realize she's doing it. She's so focused on sounding relatable, so committed to this narrative of authenticity and fun, and just being a regular mom who happens to have been a duchess, that she lets these details slip out that actually tell a very different story. And that's exactly what we're going to examine today. Not the story Meghan wants you to believe, but the story she accidentally told when she got too comfortable in that corner table at the Polo Lounge. The moments where she said things that made you go, wait, did she really just admit that? The confessions hidden inside what were supposed to be charming anecdotes. The revelations wrapped up in humble brags and casual name drops. Because Meghan Markle is incredibly media trained, she knows how to handle an interview. She knows what to say and how to say it, but even the most carefully trained person can slip up when they're trying this hard to seem authentic and down to earth and just like us. And slip up is exactly what Meghan did, over and over again throughout this interview. So, buckle up, because we're about to go through every single moment where Meghan accidentally revealed way more than she meant to. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to see this whole carefully orchestrated comeback in a completely different light. Let's start with one of the most revealing slip-ups in the entire interview, and it happens early on when Meghan is trying to paint herself as this relatable, nerdy kid who just loved to help organize things. She's sitting there at the Polo Lounge trying to come across as humble and self-aware, and she says something that actually exposes the core of who she really is. Meghan starts talking about her childhood, and she wants you to think she's just reminiscing about being a sweet little girl who liked to coordinate school activities. But listen carefully to what she actually says. She describes herself as someone whose entire identity was wrapped up in being the smart one. Not just that she was smart, not just that she enjoyed learning. Her entire identity, those are her words. Her whole sense of self, from childhood, was built on being seen as the smartest person in the room. Now you might think that's just an innocent childhood memory, but then Meghan keeps going. She tells this story about how the other kids at school would play a makeshift version of a dating game show, and they would say, well, Meghan can be the host. And here's where it gets interesting. Listen to how she describes why she was chosen for that role. Did you catch that last part? I think I'm probably the same now. Meghan just told you exactly who she is. She's not just reminiscing about childhood. She's admitting that her fundamental personality, her core identity, is about being the person who coordinates, organizes, and facilitates. In other words, she needs to be in control. She needs to be the one running the show. She's literally telling you that she has to be the host, the director, the person calling the shots. And this isn't speculation. This is Meghan's own assessment of herself. She's connecting her childhood need to be seen as the smartest, most organized person, directly to who she is today. Think about what that means. Think about every move she's made since meeting Prince Harry, the way she's tried to control her narrative, the way she's launched her own production company, her own brand, her own show where she is literally the host, the way she stepped back from the royal family where she couldn't be the one in charge. Meghan just gave you the blueprint for understanding every decision she's made. It's not about authenticity or finding herself or any of the other narratives she pushes. It's about being the person in control, the facilitator, the organizer, the host. And when she couldn't be that in the royal family, well, we all know what happened next. But here's what makes this such a massive slip-up. Meghan thinks she's being charming and relatable by sharing this childhood memory. She thinks it makes her sound grounded and self-aware. What she doesn't realize is that she just admitted her entire life is driven by a need to be seen as the smartest person who's running the show. That's not the confession of someone who's evolved or grown or learned to let go. That's someone telling you they're exactly the same as they were at 11 years old, just with a much bigger platform now. And once you understand that this is what drives Meghan, that her entire identity is wrapped up in being the coordinator and the smart one, everything else in this interview starts to make a lot more sense. Every carefully orchestrated moment, every strategic choice, every detail that seems just a little too perfectly curated, it's all coming from someone who admitted their whole sense of self depends on being the person in charge. Now let's talk about one of the biggest themes Meghan keeps hammering throughout this interview: authenticity. She uses that word over and over again. She wants you to believe that everything she's doing now, the lifestyle brand, the Netflix show, the whole California rebrand, is all about finally being her authentic self after years of being controlled by the royal family and the media. But here's where Meghan trips herself up in spectacular fashion. Because while she's preaching about authenticity and being true to yourself and not making decisions based on external judgment, she accidentally reveals exactly how calculated and staged every single moment of her life actually is. Let's start with the location of this interview. Meghan chose the Polo Lounge at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and the article even tells us this was a calculated choice. Not Meghan's favorite cozy neighborhood spot, not a quiet, intimate setting where she could really open up. The Polo Lounge, one of the most famous C&B scene restaurants in Hollywood, a place known for deal-making and politicking, where you go specifically to be photographed and noticed. And the article describes how they were seated at a circular table in the corner of the garden, a prime seat where they could see other diners and the other diners could see them. Meghan is literally staging this interview at the most public, most visible spot possible, while simultaneously claiming she's all about authenticity and not caring about external judgment. That's what Meghan says. Don't make personal decisions based on external judgment or you'll lose your authenticity. But she said this while sitting in a restaurant she specifically chose because it's the place in Hollywood where people go to be seen and judged. The cognitive dissonance is absolutely wild. And it gets better, because Meghan keeps going with this authenticity speech. She's talking about her surprise appearance at the Balenciaga show in Paris, and she wants you to think this was just a spontaneous, fun decision to support a friend. Listen to how she describes it. "We kept it a secret, and it was really fun. Meghan, if you wanted to authentically support your friend, you could have just gone to the show. But no, it had to be kept secret for maximum impact. It had to be a surprise appearance that would generate headlines and buzz. That's not authentic support. That's a calculated PR move, and she's telling you this while trying to convince you she's just being her genuine, fun-loving self." But the biggest slip-up on the authenticity front comes when Meghan is asked about being multidimensional and getting flack for it. And she gives this whole speech about how you lose your authenticity when you make decisions based on external judgment. The interviewer even points out that women in the public eye get criticized for being multidimensional, and Meghan responds by asking why the interviewer thinks that is. That deadpan response. Well, yeah, like she's so aware of the scrutiny, so conscious of the judgment, and then in the very next breath she's claiming she doesn't make decisions based on that external judgment. But Meghan, you clearly do. You just spent this entire interview demonstrating exactly that. Think about what she's actually revealed here. She chose the most visible restaurant in Hollywood for this interview. She orchestrated a secret surprise appearance at Fashion Week for maximum impact. She's launching a lifestyle brand and a Netflix show that are entirely dependent on public perception and sales. Everything about her life right now is based on external judgment and public reception. That's literally how being a public figure with commercial ventures works. But she needs you to believe it's all authentic. She needs you to think she's just being herself, making choices that feel true to her, not caring what anyone thinks. Because if you realize how calculated it all is, how every moment is staged and every decision is strategic, then the whole authentic Meghan brand falls apart. And that's exactly what she accidentally revealed in this interview. She's so focused on selling you the authenticity narrative that she didn't notice she was simultaneously showing you all the ways it's completely manufactured. The secret is kept for the big reveal. The interview location is chosen for maximum visibility. The timing coincides perfectly with her product launches. This isn't authenticity. This is a masterclass in personal branding, and Meghan just told on herself without even realizing it. Now we need to talk about one of the most telling slip-ups in this entire interview, and it happens when Meghan is describing her relationship with Prince Harry. She's clearly trying to paint this picture of a loving, equal partnership where they support each other and have fun together. But what she actually reveals is something much more interesting about the dynamics of their relationship and how she manages information. Meghan is talking about her tight circle of trust, and she puts her hand on her heart when discussing Harry. She's going for romantic and sweet here, but then she says something that should make you stop and think. Listen to this carefully. "He sees media that I wouldn't. Let that sink in for a second. Meghan just admitted that Harry is consuming media about them, about her, that she deliberately doesn't look at. Now, she wants you to think this is about healthy boundaries and self-preservation. But think about what this actually means in practice. Harry is out there reading articles, seeing coverage, absorbing criticism and commentary about Meghan. And Meghan has made the choice not to expose herself to that same information. Which means Harry has a completely different understanding of how they're being perceived than Meghan does. He's seeing things she isn't. He's aware of narratives and criticisms that she's choosing to ignore. There it is. Harry sees the media coverage that Meghan doesn't, and she trusts that he'll always have her back. But what does having her back actually mean in this context? It means Harry is the filter. He's the one who decides what information reaches Meghan and how it's presented to her. He's the buffer between Meghan and reality. Think about the power dynamic this creates. Meghan gets to remain in her bubble, protected from criticism and negative coverage, while Harry absorbs all of it. And because he loves her so much, because he's always going to have her back, he's not going to present that information to her in a way that challenges her or makes her uncomfortable. He's going to filter it through his protective instinct. This isn't the equal partnership Meghan wants you to believe in. This is Meghan admitting she set up a system where she doesn't have to confront uncomfortable truths about how she's perceived, and Harry is the one carrying that burden for her. She gets to live in a carefully curated reality while he deals with the actual reality. And here's what makes this revelation even more significant. Meghan is someone who just admitted her entire identity is wrapped up in being the smart one, the person who coordinates and organizes everything. But when it comes to media coverage about herself, she's deliberately choosing ignorance. She's outsourcing that awareness to Harry. Why would someone who needs to control everything, who needs to be the facilitator and organizer, deliberately not look at media coverage about themselves? There are really only two possibilities here. Either the coverage is so negative that Meghan can't handle seeing it, or she's intentionally maintaining plausible deniability. She can claim she doesn't know what's being said. She can act shocked when confronted with criticism, because technically she hasn't read it herself. Harry has, but she hasn't. And notice how Meghan frames this. It's not that she and Harry both avoid negative media. It's not that they've made a joint decision to protect their mental health. It's that Harry sees media that she wouldn't. He's exposed to it, she's protected from it, and she trusts him to handle it and have her back. What Meghan accidentally revealed here is that she's created a system where she gets to remain the protagonist of her own carefully controlled narrative, while Harry serves as her shield against any information that might contradict that narrative. She doesn't have to grow or change or adapt based on feedback because she's not receiving that feedback directly. It's all being filtered through someone who loves her so much he'll always take her side. This is not the confession of someone who's evolved or learned hard lessons or become more self-aware. This is someone admitting they've built a protective bubble and put their husband on guard duty. And she said it while trying to sound romantic and sweet, completely unaware of what she was actually revealing about how their relationship functions and how she manages to maintain her version of reality despite everything that's happened. Let's talk about one of the most fascinating contradictions Meghan reveals in this interview. And it's all about how she approaches her work and her business ventures. Because Meghan really wants you to believe that everything she does professionally is just an authentic extension of who she is as a person. That there's no separation between Meghan the mom and Meghan the businesswoman. That it all flows together naturally and organically. But what she actually admits paints a very different picture. And it happens when she's trying to sound relatable and down to earth about her work ethic. Meghan is talking about how she shows up in different areas of her life, and she makes this statement that she probably thought sounded really genuine and consistent. But listen to what she's actually saying here. How you are in one place is how you are in other places. That's what Meghan wants you to believe, that she brings the same authentic energy to everything, whether it's a school potluck or a business meeting. But Meghan, that's not the heartwarming statement you think it is, because what you just admitted is that you approach your children's school events with the same calculated, strategic mindset that you approach your business ventures. Think about what that actually means. When Meghan shows up to a potluck at her kids' school, she's not just being a mom, she's performing, she's calculating. She's approaching it with the same level of strategy and image management that she brings to launching a lifestyle brand, and she just told you that herself, while trying to sound wholesome and integrated. But the slip-up gets even better. Because later in the interview, Meghan is talking about working from home and trying to paint this picture of seamless work-life balance. And she reveals something that completely contradicts this idea of authentic boundaries between her different roles. My office is right by the kitchen. Meghan wants this to sound cozy and convenient, like she's just a regular work-from-home mom who can pop into the kitchen between meetings. But then she immediately follows up with something that shows exactly why this setup serves her business interests, not her parenting philosophy. There it is. Her daughter sits on her lap during business meetings about profit and loss for her brand. Meghan is presenting this as sweet and authentic. Like, look how integrated my life is. I can be a mom and a businesswoman at the same time. But what she's actually describing is using her children as props during business meetings. She's literally bringing her 4-year-old daughter into discussions about the financial performance of her commercial ventures. And notice what Meghan doesn't say here. She doesn't say she pauses the meeting to attend to her daughter. She doesn't say she reschedules when her kids need her. She says Lilibet sits on her lap while the meeting continues, while they're discussing profit and loss, while they're talking about creative direction for her brand. This isn't work-life balance. This isn't authentic integration. This is Meghan using the imagery of motherhood to soften her business persona. And she admitted it while trying to sound like a devoted mom who just happens to also run a company. But here's where the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. Meghan spent part of this interview talking about how she gives herself grace as a founder, how there's no such thing as perfect, how you have to make mistakes to grow. She's trying to position herself as this humble entrepreneur who's still learning. But then she also tells you that how she shows up in business is exactly how she shows up everywhere else in her life. So which is it, Meghan? Are you learning and growing and making mistakes in your business, which means you're also making those same mistakes in your personal life and with your kids? Or are you already showing up perfectly authentically everywhere, which means you're not actually growing or learning at all? You can't have it both ways. You can't claim to be on a learning journey as a founder while also claiming that your business approach is identical to your approach to motherhood and friendship. Either you're still figuring out how to run a business, in which case maybe don't approach your kids' school potlucks with that same energy, or you've already mastered authentic integration, in which case stop pretending you're humbly learning from your mistakes. What Meghan actually revealed here is that she's so focused on selling this integrated, authentic lifestyle brand version of herself that she didn't notice she was describing something that sounds exhausting and performative. She approaches a school potluck with the same strategic mindset as a business launch. She brings her toddler into profit and loss meetings. She set up her physical space so that her children are literally in the room while she's building her commercial empire. This isn't authenticity. This is someone who can't turn off the performance even with her own kids. And the saddest part is that Meghan thinks this is aspirational. She thinks you want to be someone who treats every moment of life, even the intimate parenting ones, with the same calculated approach as a business venture. She just told you she can't separate being Meghan the person from being Meghan the brand. And she said it like it was a good thing. Now we need to talk about some of the smaller slip-ups that happened throughout this interview. The moments that seem like throwaway details, but actually reveal so much about how Meghan sees herself, and how disconnected she is from the regular person experience she keeps trying to claim. These are the moments where Meghan is trying so hard to be relatable that she accidentally exposes just how unrelatable her life actually is. And the fascinating thing is that she has no idea she's doing it. She genuinely thinks these details make her seem down to earth and accessible. Let's start with one of the most cringe-worthy moments in the entire interview. Meghan is at the La Brea Tar Pits with a group of 11 and 12-year-old girls from a local STEM academy. She's trying to connect with them, trying to seem relatable and cool. And when one girl mentions her love of languages, Meghan sees her opportunity to bond. "I'm learning French on Duolingo." Meghan said this proudly. She thought this was her relatability moment. "Look, I use the same app you might use. I'm just like you." But Meghan, you're not learning French on Duolingo because you can't afford a private tutor. You're not doing it because it's your only option. You're married to a prince. You have access to the best language instructors in the world. You could have immersive French lessons every single day if you wanted. But more than that, the humble brag of the 90-day streak is just painful. Meghan is trying so hard to seem accomplished and disciplined, even in this tiny detail. She can't just say she's learning French. She has to let you know she's been consistent for 90 days. She has to make sure you know she's good at it. She's committed to it. She's achieving her goals even in something as simple as a language app. And she said this to a group of preteen girls while trying to seem relatable. Those girls probably went home and told their parents that the Duchess of Sussex bragged about her Duolingo streak. That's the moment Meghan chose to connect with them. But the humble brags don't stop there. Throughout this interview, Meghan name drops with a frequency that would be impressive if it wasn't so transparent. She calls Oprah Winfrey and Gwyneth Paltrow her neighbors. She mentions having lunch with Gloria Steinem, or Glo as she casually calls her. She brings up Serena Williams multiple times. She references the famous film titan she had a whispered conference with at the Polo Lounge. Even when she's talking about being an old soul as a child, she has to frame it as something her mom noticed about her, something special she was born with. Not that she became serious or grew into it, but that she was inherently different from other children from birth. It's a humble brag wrapped in a childhood memory. And then there's the moment that might be the most tone-deaf detail in the entire interview. Meghan is at the Polo Lounge, finishing up lunch, and something happens that is so absurd, so completely disconnected from normal human experience, that it's almost hard to believe. A waiter brought Meghan an unsolicited cappuccino with her own face printed in the foam, a photorealistic image of her from her royal tour of South Africa. And Meghan's response is to recognize which specific photo it is and take a picture of it because she's tickled by this perk of celebrity. Meghan, most people don't get served coffee with their own face on it. Most people don't casually identify which photo shoot a foam portrait is pulled from. Most people don't experience waiters bringing them unrequested beverages with personalized artistic renderings. And the fact that you think this detail makes you seem fun and down to earth, that you allowed it to be included in an interview meant to show how authentic and relatable you are, shows exactly how disconnected you've become from regular life. She thought this was a charming anecdote. She was tickled by it. She took a photo. She let it be published in a major magazine profile. And she has no idea how this sounds to people who don't live in a world where restaurants print their faces on coffee foam. But here's what all of these humble brags actually reveal. Meghan is trying desperately to seem relatable while simultaneously making sure you know how special and accomplished and admired she is. The Duolingo streak is relatable, but it also shows discipline and achievement. The name dropping is casual, but it also establishes her place among the elite. The coffee foam incident is quirky and fun, but it also reminds you that she's famous enough for this kind of treatment. She can't just be a person having a conversation. Every detail has to serve the brand. Every anecdote has to walk the line between accessible and aspirational. And she's so focused on maintaining that balance that she doesn't realize she's not actually achieving either one. She's not relatable because her life is extraordinarily privileged. And she's not aspirational because the trying so hard is visible in every word. What Meghan accidentally revealed through all these small slip-ups is that she's completely lost touch with what normal actually is. She thinks learning French on an app instead of hiring a tutor is humble. She thinks getting coffee with her face on it is a cute quirk. She thinks casually mentioning her 90-day streak to preteen girls is connecting with them. And the tragedy is that she genuinely doesn't seem to understand why these details don't land the way she thinks they should. She's so deep in her own carefully constructed reality, the one where Harry filters the media and her office is by the kitchen and powerful men whisper with her at the Polo Lounge, that she can't see how disconnected it all sounds. She's trying to sell you authenticity while accidentally showing you just how performed every single moment of her life has become. Now we need to talk about what might be the most damning slip-up in this entire interview, and it happens when Meghan is discussing boundaries. Because this is where Meghan accidentally admits that everything she does, every choice she makes, every carefully crafted public appearance is ultimately about self-preservation, and she says it so casually that you might miss it if you're not paying attention. The interviewer is talking to Meghan about how she seems to have good boundaries, and Meghan starts to open up about when those boundaries really became solidified. And listen very carefully to what she says here. She pauses, she makes a face, she laughs, and then she says she could think of any adjective to fill in the blank and it would probably work. But here's what's interesting. Meghan won't actually say the adjective. She won't name what her experience of coming into the public eye was like. She just implies it was terrible and moves on. But then comes the really revealing part. Listen to how she explains what these stronger boundaries actually are. Self-preservation or growing up. Meghan just equated those two things. She's trying to frame her boundaries as maturity, as personal growth, as just part of becoming an adult. But what she actually said is that her boundaries are about self-preservation, about protecting herself. And she said it like those are interchangeable concepts. But they're not, Meghan. Growing up is about learning empathy, developing perspective, understanding nuance, being able to handle criticism and feedback. Self-preservation is about survival. It's about building walls. It's about protecting yourself from perceived threats. Those are not the same thing. What Meghan accidentally revealed here is that her version of boundaries isn't about healthy emotional regulation or appropriate limits. It's about self-preservation. It's defensive. It's about keeping anything uncomfortable or challenging away from her. And she thinks that's the same thing as maturity. Different ways to protect yourself. Think about what that means in the context of everything else Meghan revealed in this interview. Harry sees media that she doesn't. That's self-preservation. She approaches business meetings and school potlucks with the same strategic energy. That's self-preservation. She surrounds herself with a tight circle of trust that protects each other. That's self-preservation. She chose the Polo Lounge for this interview, a place where she's guaranteed to be received well by people who want access to her. That's self-preservation. Every single thing Meghan described in this interview is part of a system she's built to protect herself from having to confront anything that challenges her self-image or her narrative. And she just admitted that's what her boundaries actually are, not healthy limits that allow for growth and connection. Self-preservation measures that keep reality at arm's length. But here's where this slip-up becomes even more significant. Meghan made this admission in an interview that's supposed to be about her authenticity, her growth, her new chapter. She's trying to sell you on the idea that she's evolved and learned and become more herself. But what she actually described is someone who's built increasingly stronger defenses, found more sophisticated ways to avoid criticism, and created a bubble where she only has to interact with people and information that support her version of events. That's not growth. That's not authenticity. That's someone who's so committed to self-preservation that they've mistaken isolation for boundaries and defensiveness for maturity. And the wildest part is that Meghan said this while trying to sound self-aware and evolved. She thought framing her boundaries as self-preservation would make her seem smart and protective of her mental health. She didn't realize she was admitting that her entire approach to life is fundamentally defensive, that every interaction, every choice, every carefully staged moment is part of a system designed to preserve her self-image rather than challenge or grow it. Think about how this connects to everything else she revealed. Her entire identity is wrapped up in being the smart one who's in control. She doesn't look at media coverage about herself. She brings her toddler into business meetings. She approaches children's school events with strategic calculation. She surrounds herself with people who protect each other, and she calls all of this authenticity and boundaries and growth. But what it actually is, by her own admission, is self-preservation. It's a woman who came into the public eye, didn't like what she encountered, and has spent every moment since then building systems to make sure she never has to truly face that again. Not by growing thicker skin, or developing genuine resilience, or learning to separate valid criticism from noise, but by creating a reality where she simply doesn't have to engage with anything uncomfortable. And she told you all of this herself. While sitting in a restaurant she chose for maximum visibility, while launching a brand that requires public approval to succeed, while giving an interview to a major magazine that will be read by millions of people. She's seeking attention and validation while simultaneously admitting that her entire life is structured around self-preservation and protection from judgment. The contradiction would be laughable if it wasn't so revealing. Meghan wants the platform, the fame, the influence, the commercial success, but she also wants to be completely insulated from any of the natural consequences or feedback that comes with that level of public exposure. She wants to be seen but not scrutinized, celebrated but not criticized, influential but not accountable. And when the interviewer gently points out that women in the public eye tend to get a lot of flack for being multidimensional, Meghan's response is telling. She asks why the interviewer thinks that is. She turns it back on the interviewer instead of actually engaging with the question. And when the interviewer explains the cultural distrust of women's voices, Meghan just deadpans, well yeah, like she's so aware of it, like she's thought about this so deeply. But Meghan, if you're so aware of how women in public get treated, and you've built all these self-preservation systems to protect yourself from it, then why are you actively choosing to be more public than ever? Why the lifestyle brand? Why the Netflix show? Why the magazine covers and the restaurant appearances and the Fashion Week surprises? Because you want the benefits without the costs. You want the influence without the accountability. You want the platform without the feedback. And you've convinced yourself that building walls around yourself and calling it boundaries is the same thing as personal growth. That's what Meghan accidentally revealed in this moment, and it reframes everything else in the interview. This isn't a woman who's found herself and is confidently living her authentic life. This is someone who's spent 5 years building increasingly sophisticated defense mechanisms and has mistaken that for evolution. Someone who's so committed to self-preservation that she can't even see how much she's limiting herself in the process. She said the quiet part out loud, and she didn't even realize it. So let's bring this all together, because when you look at everything Meghan accidentally revealed in this interview, a very clear picture emerges. And it's not the picture she was trying to paint. Meghan sat down with Harper's Bazaar to sell you on her comeback narrative. The authentic lifestyle guru who's finally free to be herself. The devoted mom who seamlessly balances work and family. The evolved woman who's learned and grown from her experiences. The fun-loving, relatable person who just wants to enjoy life without all the drama. But what she actually showed you is someone whose entire identity is still wrapped up in being the smartest person in the room who needs to control everything. Someone who's built an elaborate system of self-preservation that she's mistaken for personal growth. Someone who preaches authenticity while staging every single moment of her life for maximum impact. Someone who claims not to care about external judgment while choosing the most visible restaurant in Hollywood for her interview. She told you that Harry sees media coverage that she doesn't, revealing that she's created a bubble where uncomfortable truths can't reach her. She admitted that she approaches her children's school events with the same strategic calculation as her business launches. She bragged about her Duolingo streak to preteen girls while trying to seem relatable. She got served coffee with her own face on it and thought that was a charming detail to share. Every single slip-up points to the same fundamental truth. Meghan is so disconnected from authentic human experience, so deep in her own carefully constructed narrative, that she can't even hear what she's saying anymore. She thinks admitting her identity is wrapped up in being in control sounds self-aware. She thinks describing self-preservation systems sounds like healthy boundaries. She thinks name-dropping Gloria Steinem as Glow sounds casual and natural. And the most revealing part is that she genuinely seems to believe her own story. She's not consciously lying or manipulating. She's so committed to this version of herself, this authentic, evolved, fun-loving Meghan, that she can't see the contradictions anymore. The performance has become the reality in her mind. The carefully curated life is what she actually thinks authentic living looks like. This interview was supposed to launch her new era. The lifestyle brand, the Netflix show, the whole Californian entrepreneur rebrand. But what it actually did was show us that Meghan hasn't evolved at all. She's the same person she admitted to being as an 11-year-old girl. The one whose entire identity is wrapped up in being the smart one who coordinates and facilitates everything. She's just got better at packaging it now, better at surrounding herself with people who support the narrative, better at building systems that keep reality at a comfortable distance. And the saddest part is that she thinks this is success. She thinks creating a life where her 4-year-old sits on her lap during profit and loss meetings is aspirational. She thinks having her husband filter media coverage so she doesn't have to see it is healthy. She thinks approaching every moment of her life with strategic calculation is authentic integration. Meghan wanted to control this narrative. She chose the location, the timing, the publication. She staged the photo op with the STEM girls. She coordinated the whole thing to coincide with her product launches. But what she couldn't control was what she accidentally revealed when she got comfortable enough to speak freely. And that's the real story here. Not the glossy photos or the carefully crafted quotes about authenticity and fun, but the moments where Meghan said the quiet parts out loud, where she admitted her need for control, her defensive self-preservation, her complete disconnection from normal life, her inability to separate performance from reality. She thought she was showing us her authentic self. What she actually showed us was someone who's lost touch with what authentic even means. So what was the most revealing slip-up for you? The identity confession? The hairy media filter system? The self-preservation admission disguised as boundaries? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I want to hear what stood out to you. And if this analysis opened your eyes to what Meghan actually revealed in this interview, smash that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into celebrity interviews where we read between the carefully crafted lines, and hit the notification bell because we've got even more explosive content coming your way. These carefully staged comeback interviews always reveal more than they intend to, and we're going to break down every single moment where the mask slips. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.